Hello and welcome to another episode of Pittsburgh Sports Memories. I'm Steve Wirt, and as usual, I'm here with my co-host.
Hi, I'm Tim Hannon.
And today we're going to cover one of the more famous Steeler playoff games in recent history, I would say. Um, it'll be the Steelers-Colts game. We're titling this. It's as serious as a heart attack.
And it literally was.
Yeah, it
as serious as a heart
literally
attack.
was. So some of us didn't survive. Well, we did, but not the same as we went in, I guess. But it's a 2005 Steelers vs. Colts huge playoff game. The Steelers were a big underdog, so let's set the Wayback Machine all the way back to the good old days of 2004. George Bush was president. I don't think we're in a Iraq war yet, but maybe close, getting close. And then I don't know what else was going on. Maybe I don't even think Barack Obama was in the Senate yet, so. I don't know what other current events. Saddam Hussein was still in charge, so yeah. Osama bin Laden was still alive, so that's all the stuff that was at least not sports related going on in 2004. I guess we're starting off like the beginning of the Civil War, Ken Warren's. What
else was going on that year? Who was born that year?
Yeah. Taylor Swift was. I don't know what Taylor Swift was doing, but anyway. So in 2004, the Steelers went 15-1, and they had went to the AFC Championship game. We covered that season extensively in a earlier podcast. They had lost to the Patriots, and it was a very heartbreaking loss. So that offseason, and at some point in the future, we'll cover this season more in depth, but I really wanted to dedicate a whole episode to just this game because I think it's one of the more pivotal, if not fun games to talk about.
Agreed.
So Bettis almost retired. Hines Ward really cried on TV, which was a big thing back then. I guess I don't know if it still would be. I'm not sure, but how that would be received now. But it was they really liked Jerome Bettis. He was a beloved veteran, and he had never gotten to even play in a Super Bowl. He'd gotten close a couple times, got to a couple championship games. I guess three championship games, and had lost every one. So the team had young players in their prime like Troy Polamalu. Ben was coming in his second year. Hines Ward was definitely a veteran. Deshae Townsend. But they had revamped their secondary, which had kind of been the problem with a guy named Ike Taylor and a rookie named Bryant McFadden and Chris Hope. It was the safety, and they were all kind of gelling. They had finally gelled from the previous year. So the defense, as good as it was the year before, was actually, I think, probably a little more improved that next year. So the Jerome Bettis almost retiring thing kind of seemed to bring the team closer together and give them purpose. And Bettis decided, well, we got a pretty good team here, and I'd like to go out on a high note if I could. So let me come back.
And also, he also knew that year's Super Bowl was going to be played in Detroit, which was his hometown.
Right. So there was a lot kind of going into that. So to just kind of fast forward through the season, the Steelers barely make the playoffs as a 6 seed and with an 11-5 record. At that time, only one wild card team had won the Super Bowl. That was the 80 Raiders. And no 6 seed had ever even made it to the conference championship game. Bill Cowher had not won a Super Bowl. He'd only ever been to one. And he had not won a playoff road game in his career until the week before this game. He had won in Cincinnati, so it actually had one playoff road win. But they had only played, I think, 3 road playoff games. Yes, it was Kansas City in the 90s, that stupid Joe Nedney game.
Yeah, that we covered.
Yeah, and then the Cincy game, which we'll cover all that. Yeah, we'll cover the whole season.
I think the New England Fog game, too. I think that was at
New England.
Yes,
yeah, so I
90s.
guess, yeah.
But you're right. Most of the time, under Cowher, the Steelers went into the playoffs as a home team because they were like the 1 or 2 seed.
Yeah.
And rarely did they go in as a wild card or a team that had to play on the road. And like you said, a 6 seed, that was at the time that was like unheard of because you would have had to have beaten. I mean, if the 6th seed wins their first game, first of all, they're beating a division champion in that first round. Then they have to go play the number 1 seed in the next round. So that's why they had never made it to even to the conference championship game. You would have to
and still
make it through the 3 seed and the 1 seed just to get to the conference championship.
Well, just that divisional ground is so like I think it's still 70. Even like, you know, it's shifted more. Like it's not as heavy as it used to be. I think it used to be like over 80 or 90%. Like the home team almost always wins in the divisional round. The conference championship game is more of a toss-up, but I mean, and it's still, I think, at like 70, 75%. Like that divisional round, like the home team almost always wins.
Well, because they're on a 2-week break.
Well, yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
at that time, yes.
Yeah, they can rest up all their players.
So, yeah.
And the other team had to play the previous week, and they're banged up potentially. Yeah, you're right. That's a huge advantage.
Yeah. So college playoff record was 1-3. I guess that was the road record. This overall perception leading into that game was that the Steelers were just kind of an also-ran, like, oh, they made it that year. So, and just to go over the Colts, who was their opponent for this game, was in 2004 the Colts had gone 12-4, but they had lost to the Patriots in the playoffs game, and that was really seen as the premier, I guess, matchup or rivalry in the NFL at that time because it was Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, you know, Bill Belichick, Tony Dungy, blah blah blah, whatever. so the Colts had Peyton Manning, as you said, Edgerrin James, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark, a very good defense. They had the kid from Erie, Bob Sanders, who played at Iowa, Dwight Freeney, who played at Syracuse, and Gary Brackett, who is pretty good. The 2005 Colts were probably had a really good regular season, and they had stayed undefeated until late in the season. They had lost in Week 15. And they had clinched everything by that point, so Tony Dungy just kind of rested his players. They really wanted to win the Super Bowl, not go finish the season undefeated. They really could care. And so even with that, they had a pair of late season losses. They still finished with 14-2. The Patriots, just because they were kind of the other big team of that era, had a slightly down year for them. They went 10-6. And the Saturday before that Sunday, because it was a Sunday, I think 1 o'clock game, yeah. They had lost to Denver in Denver by it was a blowout game. So the Patriots got blown out in Denver. The Colts were considered an overwhelming favorite to win the Super Bowl that year. Tony Dungy was a sentimental favorite to win the Super Bowl. He had been a longtime assistant under Chuck Noll and Dennis Green. He had to wait a long time to become a head coach, and he was a head coach in Tampa. And he had built Tampa from kind of like a laughing stock. Like Tampa was what Cleveland is now, or well, maybe Cleveland might be on.
Yeah, right.
Cleveland's on the way to respectability, but like Tony Dungy kind of like resurrected Tampa, because I remember that in the mid '90s, like Sports Illustrated had like a cover, "Break Up the Bucks," you know, because it was like, oh my gosh, the Tampa Bay was so horrible. But the Glazers, I guess, who still own, I guess they owned the team back then, had gotten rid of Dungy for John Gruden, and they had won a Super Bowl. John Gruden basically won a Super Bowl with Tony Dungy's players. So, I mean, you know, Tony Dungy kind of got a raw deal there. The Steelers go on a winning streak late in the season just to get into the playoffs. And on a rare loss on Monday Night Football, the Colts actually kind of blew out the Steelers 26-7. Home teams, they rarely lose those divisional playoff games. I remember this. I remember the Colts were accused of piping in artificial crowd noise down to the field, which I guess, you know, remember when they used to have fans in the stadium? Remember that? That's such a novel concept. They used to have people they used to have these things called like fans, and they would sit there and cheer really loud, and especially in the dome, make it hard to hear. You couldn't just hear what the quarterback and the players were saying.
And that was when they were still playing in their old stadium, the
RCA.
The RCA Dome or the Hoosier Dome, whatever it was called back then. And that place was like one of the loudest stadiums.
What was it? Yeah, Seattle I think was louder, the old King Dome, but
yeah. Seattle, Kansas City, those places were always pretty loud too. But yeah, that old Indianapolis stadium was considered one of the hardest places to play. And like you said, the Steelers had got blown out there earlier, and like the Colts were so good that year. Like you said, they were undefeated. They were almost an undefeated team.
Yeah, and they just kind of like they rested their players.
Yeah, they just kind of put the brakes on at the end of the season. Like they really hadn't lost like a legitimate game.
No, they just kind of like we don't want to get anybody hurt.
And
we want to win. Tony's just like, I'm winning the Super Bowl. I don't really care about going undefeated. And I can understand that.
And literally, the only thing people were saying is, well, maybe the one team that could stop them, even though they had a down year, would be Belichick and Brady because they had beaten them the last 2 years in the playoffs. But then when the Patriots lost the night before, it's like, well, that's coronate the Colts because they're winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So before that week, like the Steelers were trying to fly under the radar. There was definitely I don't think even in Pittsburgh I don't remember too many people picking the Steelers to win that game, but nationally definitely nobody was picking the Steelers. Joey Porter, who was not impressed with the Colts offense, he gave a quote because Cowher was trying to keep everybody under wraps, but Jerry Porter, as he become come to know later in his career, have his playing careers. But not to be confused with Joey Porter. He said in the Post-Gazette, I don't want to just sit there, line up. They don't want to just sit there, regarding the Colts, sit there, line up and play football. Porter told the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, they want to try and catch you off guard. They don't want to play smash mouth football. They want to trick you. They want to catch you substituting. Know what I mean? They don't want to just call a play, get up there and run a play. They want to make you think. They want it to be a thinking game instead of a football game. Yes. I guess Joey Porter's like the Hulk, Joey Porter smashed an offensive lineman, not think about run or pass.
Yeah, what's Peyton Manning doing thinking about the play?
He's just a quarterback.
Yeah, just throw the ball. Better yet, just run it up the middle and knock guys over.
Yeah. So there was that, and I guess it was kind of a newfangled thing. This is so commonplace now that it's hard to believe how much football has changed.
Well, and Peyton Manning especially. I remember he used to run up to the line. He would do 57
Omaha. That was before Omaha. I don't know what he was.
But he would be waving his arms around. He'd be yelling stuff, and
what's another city in Nebraska that he might pick? I don't know.
And half the time he wouldn't even be. I don't think audibling. He would just be
dummy audibling.
Yeah. And guys would be in motion. They definitely. Porter was right. But I don't know that was a bad thing. They won a lot of games doing that kind of offense.
Yeah. Well, and they had Tom Moore, who had actually been with the Steelers in the 70s. So him and Tom Moore kind of developed that offense over the years.
Right. Yeah, and we talked about Tom Moore in our 80s Steelers episode, how they fired him in the late 80s, and then he went on to
bigger and better.
Bigger and better things, yep.
Yeah. Edgerrin James had 124 yards in the November matchup, which would seem to lead to discounting Joey Porter's theory, but he said it was a cheap 100. Said the Colts couldn't line up and run straight at the Steelers defense, which in Porter's defense was probably true because they had Hampton and Aaron Smith and good gravy. Jim Brown in the 1960s, Browns probably would have had trouble running against that defense.
Have you ever seen anybody get into the heads of people more than Joey Porter? I've never seen that before.
Jerry Porter. No,
I've never seen any other athlete capable of doing that.
Maybe Rodman.
Yeah, he used to get into people's heads. That was usually more during the game.
Yeah.
I feel like Porter could say stuff to people. He totally messed up that Seahawks tight end in the Super Bowl that year.
Jeremy Stevens.
Yeah, he dropped the fourth
down.
Yeah. Even when he was an assistant coach, he got the Bengals to throw away a playoff game.
Because they were more obsessed with going after Joey Porter.
Yeah.
Than winning a playoff game.
So that Joey Porter just.
Well, I guess you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, you can't let Joey Porter get the last word.
Yeah, winning the game wasn't good enough.
I've never seen anybody able to get into people's heads like that. The only other guy I could think of is that guy that in the World Cup that got the guy from Italy to headbutt him.
Yeah. Well, that was I would prefer the whore that is your mother.
Yes.
That's what it loosely. I don't think it was said in English. I think it was said in either Italian or French. So that's what it loosely translates to.
But that guy in the World in overtime.
That was Zinedine Zidane was the guy who headbutted the other guy. I don't know the Italian
that
defender.
guy's name, but he might be on the same level of Joey Porter getting getting somebody to get disqualified out of overtime of the World Cup final.
I prefer that. Like, who even gets, like, you just laugh that off. Well, Zinedine Zidane, not so much. But, well, World Cup soccer coming into play there.
Back on topic.
Yeah. From the fans' perspective, I think there was some skepticism. I know I felt that the Steelers could be. I kind of felt like, not quite like Joey Porter, but I thought that the Steelers just kind of had a bad game. Ben had just come off injury, and the Colts didn't do anything. It wasn't like a game where I thought, oh, man, the Colts are just so much better than the Steelers. I thought the score wasn't indicative of how close. Like, I remember Ike Taylor got burned by Harrison, but that was because Ike Taylor bid on a play action. It wasn't like Marvin Harrison just – like he did to Deion Sanders, I think, earlier that year or later the next year. Like, he just ran by Deion. Like, and there was nothing Deion could do about it because Deion was very old at that point. I just felt like if Ike played it straight up and let his, what are you doing worrying about the run anyway, Ike? Just play, what you should be, that I didn't feel like they were going to get burned like that again.
And that was like the first play of the game too, remember?
Yeah.
Or the first series at least.
Yeah, it was early in the game.
It was right smack at the beginning of the game, and it's like right off the bat, long touchdown pass. They were down early. They couldn't play their game. Like with Ben, back then, Ben was not.
No, he wasn't what he is now. Like, I run back and I rewatch that game, and it's amazing the evolution from the Ben now to the Ben then. Like, you could see glimpses of it, but he definitely wasn't going up and changing the play and adjusting. They had a different offense. They were definitely a running team back then.
Right.
They had some weapons at wide receiver, but they're definitely a running team.
They're a team that was way more comfortable not being down 7-0 20 seconds into the game. Like, that was a bad place for them to be. You're right. That first game was a little fluky.
Yeah.
But you still thought, like,
but I was the only one. I was in the minority. Like, I remember talking to other people like that. We all know the Colts are gonna blow. They're gonna do it again, and But there were some fans that are just fans. Like, yeah, I think the Steelers. Like, just kind of like being fans. But from the media, like I said, even locally, like there were very few. Like maybe Bob Pompiani, maybe. There was really nobody in the media locally.
I was very cautiously optimistic, but I really didn't think they had much of a chance. I was number one. I was happy that they made it to the playoffs because they had to win those last 4 games just to make it in, and then I was really happy that they had beat Cincinnati because that was the year they had the big division chase with Cincinnati, and it just felt good to stick it to Cincinnati. And I was like, okay, if we lose to Indy, it was still a pretty good season. But, if we could just maybe, like, not go down early, maybe we'd have a chance at this one.
Yeah. Well, enough hype on the game. Let's get on to actually playing the game. So that kind of sets the scene. So the Steelers wandered into the RCA Dome with all their piped-in noise. But they did have, like, 60,000 fans there, too, so they probably were making enough noise. But and there weren't a lot of Steeler games. Sometimes even a playoff game, like there would be I'll give the Colts fans credits.
Yes.
They really showed up.
Yeah, they have actual fans. Yeah. that show up for their big games. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so the Steelers they start the game. They win the coin toss and they start the game on offense. And so like we said, like the Steelers were definitely a running team, and the Colts were ready for that. They were kind of set up for the run. So Ken Whisenhunt, who was the coordinator at that time, decides to hey, we're going to cross it up. They start throwing the ball, and boy, this is when the legend, I would say this is when Big Ben became a legend, was this game. This is if he wasn't a legend already, this is when you kind of knew he was for real. So he completes a big pass to Heath Miller, and they get inside the 20-yard line. And I think they completed another pass. Maybe they didn't run much early in the game. I mean, he hits Antoine Randall for a big touchdown on the opening drive on a 3rd and 4. And 7-0, they're up 7-0 in the Steelers, and they're just getting started. Let's see.
And that was shocking. That was almost like, hey, like you said, they're expecting us to just run, play conservative, like let's just go for it. And if Ben, the second-year quarterback, throws, an interception or whatever, they just were going to throw caution to the wind and say, we're not going to beat this team unless we can get some points on the board early. So that was gutsy.
Yeah, after in the Colts punt and they look out, their offense looked out of sync. So maybe, like you said, taking their foot off the gas pedal a little bit might have affected them. Plus the bye, they come out a little slow on offense because they really haven't played a meaningful game, like you said, in like what, a month.
Right.
So, disaster strikes. Ben gets hit by Dwight Freeney and throws an interception. It really wasn't completely Ben's fault. Dwight Freeney's really good. Marvell Smith was really good too, but Dwight Freeney really played a heck of a game in this game. But no worries, the Steelers defense has the back and they force another 3 and out. I mean, so the Colts get an early break and the defense stands up. On the next possession, they're facing a 3rd and 10. I remember this. Ben throws an absolute strike to Hines Ward, and he fights off, like, it's a classic Hines Ward catch. Like, he fights off, like, Bob Sanders and somebody else. Like, they're absolutely all over him, and he fights him off and runs after the catch. He also draws a penalty. He gets a face mask because the Colts are trying to tackle him.
Didn't he lose a shoe on that play?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I didn't see it in the replay. I think I would have, because I actually did go back and actually watch this whole game.
It was like, but like two guys, like it almost looked like the two guys like crashed into him.
Yeah,
And
it was like one of those ones where he caught it and they hit him, but it's like, you always hear the saying, like the hardest hits on defense are normally on the other defensive players. And that's kind of what happened is the one defensive player kind of picked off the other defensive player.
And then Hines is like still running.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, they hit Hines Ward too, but, knowing Hines Ward, the way, it's going to take more than like, that than bring down Hines Ward. So that was a big 3rd down. Ben throws a perfect pass to Heath Miller for a touchdown. So they're up 14-0 now. The Steelers were the run. They crossed it up. They are now passing the ball. They have a 14-point lead by coming out with passing instead of running. The Colts have some. They're out of sorts on offense right now, but their defense didn't look that bad. I think their defense just got caught flat-footed early in the game. And then the defense starts to really hold down. It's not just like Peyton Manning's out of sync. Like the defense of the Steelers is playing well too. So they knocked down some passes early, and they totally shut down Edgerrin James, the Colts running back. They're starting to get some pressure on Peyton Manning with sacks by Kimo von Oelhoffen, who doesn't break Peyton Manning's leg like he had the week before to the Palmer. James Ferrier has a great game too this game. This pressure, I think Peyton was definitely a rhythm passer. Like if you could either make him hold the ball or hit him, if you sat back and played zone or let him kind of get in a rhythm, even under a blitz, he would pick you apart. So it was so nice, too. I remember, a lot of other teams doing this to the Steelers, over the years, just coming in and actually having, a hot start to a playoff game. It was, the perfect start. If you could script up a way you want to start a playoff game, this is it. Come out throwing, catch the other team off guard, and get 14-0. You even have a turnover, and you're still up 14-0. So
yeah.
The team's really playing up to what you thought they could.
And that's what that's what everybody said they had to do. You couldn't get down against the team. You couldn't be 3-3 because eventually, like you said, they were rusty. But eventually, Peyton Manning was going to get going. So you had to make them uncomfortable.
Yeah, and Kimo Oelhoffen has another pass rush. So Kimo's one of my favorite players, underrated Steeler.
He was.
You don't hear much about him, but Kimo's great. Like I said, Dwight Freeney smoking Marvell Smith, and he was really good. Nick Harper, we actually have a Nick Harper note here. He got hit in his knee by his own teammate on the Hines Ward catch on that 3rd and 10. He went out of the game. It's his opposite leg from which he was stabbed by his girlfriend the night before.
Yeah, that was really bizarre that he literally got stabbed in his other leg the night before the game. And do you remember the details of that?
I don't know. She just got mad at him and stabbed him. And I guess it must have not been too serious because he did play. And he played well. I remember watching it. It was boy, for a guy that kind of went through a lot the night before, he played really well. So
yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And he comes into play later.
Yeah, he definitely.
But I couldn't remember the did he leave the toilet seat up? I don't remember what exactly happened.
I think he ate all the leftovers.
Yeah.
I don't know. And The officials start to come into play here. They have a bad no pass interference call on Antoine Randall. He like the Colts DB Marlon Jackson, who's filling in. And the it's such an obvious pass interference that Dick Enberg, who's like the most call it down the middle of the road like national announcer, he doesn't normally even says "oh my" after it. And if you get an "oh my" out of Dick Enberg, something's going on there, you know.
Yeah, that was definitely a sign of things to come from the referees.
So after that play, Nick Harper, he comes back on the field and he has a gutty performance. He really does. He like when they try to sub for him, like the other, what was that, Marlon? It just isn't as good as Nick Harper, even on one leg or no legs now, I guess, since the other knee's hurt and he's stabbed in the other. So Ben is running for his life from the Colts defense. He fakes Dwight Freeney out of his shoes, but he's only able to get an incompletion out of it. It was like really great early Ben. Like, remember he used to run around like crazy and play backyard football. It was kind of like those Ben moments. He throws a pass into triple coverage, so we still got like kind of like those like rookie kind of like early career mistakes. It almost gets intercepted, thank God. It didn't. The Colts start from their own 1 yard line and they go on a long drive, and this is kind of at the end of the half. And they figured out that like they just gonna run the ball. I guess the Steelers started playing pass a lot, so they started running Edgerrin James, and they have some success. So they're playing the Joey Porter. What Joey Porter wanted them to do? They're lining up and running the ball at him. So the James is kind of getting going here. On a second and goal from the 10-yard line, Larry Foote made a huge tackle on a pass to James, to Edgerrin James. He literally stopped him at the 1 yard line. Like it was Larry Foote and Edgerrin James. I think I remember one-on-one, and he tackled him. So that was a big play. And they were at the 1, so they really weren't that far off. Tarek Glenn, the Colts offensive line had a really bad game. He committed a false start, so that backed them up to the 5. And that really kind of hurt them there, because from the 1, I mean, it took like a miracle tackle by Larry Foote. Maybe they just run the ball, and But then Aaron Smith, who, another great, I guess he's more well-known than maybe Chemo, jumps offside and makes a 3rd and goal from the 2 yard line. But then, just like, was that Dumb and Dumber? Just when you do the dumbest thing ever, you go and he totally redeems himself.
Redeem yourself.
Yeah. From the 2 yard line, he makes a nice tackle on Edgerrin James while being blocked. It's quite impressive. So 2 really big plays on Edgerrin James at the end of that drive. They kind of bend, but they don't break. So the Colts settle for a Mike Vanderjagt field goal. The Colts offense is showing some signs of life after like we said, a listless first half. Like they definitely had some rust. The score at the half is 14-3. So the Steelers are kind of, right where they need to be. Like we said, they're up 14-3 and doing well. But the Colts get the ball to start the second half. So, that's always big scoring before that, even if it is a field goal, because you can kind of pull, you call it the double. I call it the double, If you get, 2 scores, going into half and coming out of half, that can really turn a game.
Yes.
So it was on a 2nd and 7 preview with a tipped ball. Looks like it's intercepted by Polamalu. The refs call it incomplete. It was a close play. It looked like the ball may have been caught. It was really close to call. So it wasn't egregious. It was kind of one of those 50-50s. You could call it incomplete. You call it, interception. But, the refs decide to call it incomplete. Defense does force a big punt on the next play, a 3rd down. It's a big play. And, like I said, so the Colts couldn't pull off the double. So that's another big play with the Steelers defense. So, the Steelers defense still through 3 quarters are holding the Colts to 3 points. And so now the Steelers' first drive of the second half, they get a couple first downs, but they're really forced to punt. Dwight Freeney still totally owning Marvell Smith. I remember they made a big deal about this game. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I don't know if it had any effect on the game, but while getting sacked by Freeney, Ben gets hit by Robert Mathis in his throwing arm. They made a big deal about a TV. I mean, just because anytime Ben gets hurt, and this is like, he always like shakes his hand, or
Yeah.
he always like kind of plays it. I don't know if he plays it up but like the media just goes absolutely crazy. And like I've watched enough Ben Roethlisberger over like how many years? Like you wouldn't. It's kind of like you wouldn't like me when I'm angry. You wouldn't like him when he did the same thing. Just recently, he hurts both his knees. And oh my goodness, Ben! It's like, yeah, watch out now. Now you just done ticked him off, so you're in trouble. So the worst thing you can do is hit Ben really hard because it seems to wake him up, especially if he's having like a bad game.
Yeah, and you're right. There's so many times in his career where he's got up, like visibly like wincing or holding something, and then he's fine.
Well, or like he'll be playing like a really bad game, and then they'll hit him, and they're like, yeah, it's like, oh my goodness, and they'll get up and weird, and then it's like it's like all of a sudden he just makes up his mind like, oh,
yeah,
the heck with this.
Remember the game where Baltimore broke his nose and beat them in the last minute? Yeah, exactly. There's lots of examples of that.
Yeah, so Casey Hampton actually gets some pressure on Manning. It was always fun to see big old Casey Hampton get after the quarterback. On 3rd and 10, James Ferry gets a sack on Peyton Manning. This was like right at the Colts like half-yard line. Like it could have been a safety. Like at first, I remember seeing it, thinking it was a safety. Maybe Manning's knee was down. It was definitely like favorable call for the Colts because you don't want to give up another 2 points. I guess it would have been 16-3 at that point, but.
And to be fair, like typically those calls, like for safety, you really have to be like in the end zone.
Well, it was kind of one of those ones where you could have called forward progress too, because like he was going back, which is like if you're going back and giving yourself into that's supposed to be the rule. Like it was close, and it was another call. It was just kind of like, well, if it's 50-50, like it seemed there's a lot of calls like if they are down the line, they always went to the Colts.
Right.
So
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It wasn't egregious, but like every close call went their way.
Yeah. It's becoming a theme.
Right.
So the Steelers get the ball after that at the Colts 30. Like they kicked into the 50, but Randall had a nice punt return. So now it's Bill Cowher decides to like channel his inner Marty Schottenheimer, and I'm not going to let no darn rookie lose me the game. I'm handing off to my veteran running back. So they're we're calling out Jerome Bettis, and we're just going to run the ball a lot for the rest of the game. So this is our offense. Welcome to Navy or Georgia Tech, right? We are going to run the ball. So they run the ball literally on every play on this drive. First by Willie Parker, who actually has a nice couple runs. Then by Bettis, who had like an awesome, like the way he scores a touchdown, he like literally jumps over the pile. It's like I remember, like I think like they had, like I watched the NFL like little, like I still have like the Steelers like little highlight video from that year. And it was like, you didn't know buses could fly. I think Hillgrove says that, or Tunchilkin. So it's now 21-3, and we're going into the fourth quarter. So the Steelers are total control of the games. And here's where the game kind of starts to turn a little bit. The Colts have a 4th and 2 at their own 36. And they're down 18 points with 34 seconds to go in the third quarter. So I've jumped ahead. We aren't quite into the fourth quarter yet. Tony Dungy, being kind of conservative, sends the punt team out. How many possessions were they down? 1, 2, 3. So, well, I mean, it's not a horrible call to go for it because maybe you aren't going to get the ball 3 more times.
But at your own 36, if you don't make it there,
yeah, it's pretty much the ball
like
game.
The end of the game.
Yeah,
almost.
Because, well, I mean, even if they kick a field goal, what does that make it? 24 points or 17?
I guess it's still 3 scores either way. So it wouldn't have been. Yeah, I can see why Peyton did what he did because.
Well, yeah, it's what happens is, just to review, is so it was a 4th and 2. It wasn't a long, like it's 4th and 5 and less. I've changed it, like I think as football's changed so much. I think almost 4th and 5 and less. And if you're between the 40s, you should almost go for it every time now. Unless you're unless you have like absolutely terrible offense. So that's what Peyton Manning does. He literally waves the punt team off and says, "No, Tony Dungy, I'm running a play." Which, I think in hindsight, like maybe Tony Dungy hadn't completely, and things hadn't completely changed to where they are now. Like Belichick ended up doing this years later. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Like he went for it and everybody criticized him, but I thought it was the right decision by Belichick. I was in the minority on that.
Well, and Belichick was tied when he did that. I mean,
was he? Or I thought they were up. Or
it was a very
regular
close
season game. Yeah,
it was a very close game. This was he wasn't trailing by a ton.
Right.
And here the Colts were trailing by 18 points.
Yeah, but Manning pays it off. He completes a pass to Brandon Stokely, who I totally forgot about. He was a guy. He was like a solid, like good player. He was like that classic, like I don't know how to describe him, little slot receiver guys that are like they're like a dime a dozen. You can name like 20 of them. And
he played forever. He played for that Ravens.
He
Super
played for
Bowl team.
I think he played for Denver.
He played for Denver. He played for Denver. He caught that pass.
It's that Gus Johnson like has like a brain aneurysm over. Yes.
Yeah, and he played on the 2000 Ravens Super Bowl team. Like he had a long career playing on a lot of actually pretty good teams.
And that was a big play. It totally changed the momentum in the game. So a couple plays later, Manning completes a pass to tight end Dallas Clark, who was really good. Like I think I mentioned him earlier, and he runs for 40 yards because Polamalu, like he kind of cut to the sideline, and if he would have caught the pass, it would have been a big play. But Polamalu kind of misses the tackle and runs for the, and maybe that's why Bart Scott doesn't think he's a Hall of Famer. I know because he missed one tackle in a game because Bart Scott never missed a tackle ever in his career. But anywho. So the Colts are right back in it, right? And it's the score is now 21-10. I don't know if they're right back in it, but they're definitely, we're getting it, the game is tightening up.
Well, remember when we did our episode about the 2009 Penguins and Game 7 against the Red Wings, and we were up 2-0 in the third period, and you knew that Detroit was going to at least get one goal at some point. So it's like, can we just hold off really as long as we can? And so like this game, I felt the same way. I was like, okay, it's not going to end 21-3, but can we like just make them like slowly drive down the field, right, and use up a bunch of clock, and then they get a 40-yard touchdown pass? Like that was the worst case scenario.
Yeah, because it was a quick score too, and it was like only 1 or 2 plays after that fourth down.
Right.
So now, like I said, we're going to run the ball. So Marty Schottenheimer has snuck onto the sidelines and is now calling plays for us. He's told, give me the headset, Ken Wisenhunt. I'm calling plays. Yeah. So they're running the ball, and Bettis comes up just short on a 3rd and 4, and it's literally 4th and inches at midfield. But this goes back to what I just said. Like if you're in between the 40s. And it's like 4th and less than 5. I think you got to go for it here, and so Bill, snatches the headset off of Marty and says, "Nope, we're going for it," because definitely Marty Schottenheimer would have punted. Yeah, because he did that in a game against I remember we were watching I think a game when he coached the Chargers against Belichick, and you said, "Well, there goes the rest of the game. They're just going to run off the clock."
And we talked about how Cowher was a disciple of Schottenheimer. I mean, he was an assistant coach for Schottenheimer. He was a very similar coach, and so you're right. It's like the little like Marty on one shoulder, and then like I don't know, Ron
Mike
Rivera on the other shoulder, like somebody that's a little
go
more.
Go for it! You'll never hold up.
Schottenheimer's like,
forever.
punt. What are you?
Sit on your defense. Don't let the rookie quarterback make a mistake. That's good. I like that. I don't know who the other
we need like a
devil and an angel. Yeah. Who would be the devil and who would be the angel? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Marty would definitely be the punt guy, and then. Yeah, I don't know. Some
Mike Martz. I don't.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Mike Martz or Rex Ryan, maybe somebody just like to hell with it. Just go. We'll get it.
So in that now, once again with the officiating, it gets really strange here.
Yeah, this is one of the weirdest plays
I think I've ever seen. I can't even remember another play in another game.
No.
Besides, like Bob McElwee, described, there's gas in the stands. Everybody run, like in a Washington Redskins game years ago. But which is like the equivalent of yelling fire, way to be calm, But Pete Morelli decides that he's gonna really confuse everybody. So there's this 4th down, and the Colts jump and they make contact with the Steelers line, which And it's kind of one of those ones where maybe somebody flinched, maybe somebody didn't. And I get the feeling the refs didn't want to decide the play. They're like, this is a big play. We don't want to be involved in it unless it's something so blatantly obvious that we have to throw the flag. I get the feeling that's what Pete Morelli was thinking is, I want it decided on the field by the players unless, and it was so, I don't know if there was a flinch. I don't remember. I think there's a later one where there is a flinch, but
did they blow the whistle? They blew the whistle.
They blew the whistle, and everybody
Right.
stands up. And, I remember the coaches came on the field, not all the way to the mid, but, on the field a little bit. And, everybody's, are you? And then all of a sudden they're like, no, nobody made contact. Nobody flinched. We're just going to have a do-over. And I think that was the logic behind it was we're not going to decide this, even though later they decided they were going to decide it. But we'll get into that later.
That was, I mean,
it was just so odd.
You have to make a call there. I don't know what the right call was. Like you were saying,
I think there's a later one where Faneca does flinch, but I don't think anybody flinched. But if they jump across and touch, that's it. That's that's on the defense,
right?
Because I think you can still jump across and jump back real quick at that time, as long as the offense doesn't move.
Right, but when you make contact,
yeah.
So if you make contact, but a guy flinched to make you make contact, then it's a false start.
Yeah.
So you have if you blow the whistle there. You
and
have
they
to
did,
call
yeah,
it. Yeah, it's a call. So either you get it right or you get it wrong, but make a call. And they were just like, we weren't really looking.
Okay, now I have in my notes in a replay. It did look like Alan Faneca flinched on that one.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, but then make the call.
The call, yeah, make it fourth and 5, which
right.
I would have still,
but
he would have punted.
He would have punted. Yeah. But make the call. It was either one or the other, and they're just like, well, I mean, what were they doing?
Yeah.
We were. Oh, sorry. I was checking my phone. I wasn't watching. Let's just do it over.
So apparently we've devolved into backyard football at this point, which Ben loves. So he's all in. The rest of us maybe not so much. So the Steelers run the quarterback sneak, which is a great play because going 5 nowadays they would have my dad would have been apoplectic because they would have run that stupid little shotgun play, which my dad hated even all the way back then when West Virginia used to run it. We used to go to pick and why are you literally spotting the defense 5 yards? It makes sense and when you have inches or a yard, and I would say that's their offense. That's Rich Rod's offense. But Kansas City would do the same thing. But anywho, they don't get it. Ben doesn't get it at first, but they're Bettis just plows into Ben's back, and they kind of have the Bush push, and they just everybody just kind of goes forward and gets literally 1 yard. The Steelers pass on first down, which was pretty smart. It's their 5th pass of the half and their first pass in 11 plays, so definitely whichever shoulder Marty is on, he's winning the argument right now. So. On 3rd and 1, like I said, the Colts defense, man, I say what you will. I mean, Joey Porter called them soft. They were not soft.
Yeah, they were up to the task. They just, like you said, they kind of got caught early. And after those first 2 touchdowns, the rest of the game, because that
like I said, Dwight
touchdown,
Freeney, Gary Brackett, I forget there was was Simon? I think Corey Simon might have been. They had a really their defensive line was big and fast.
Right.
And Bob Sanders on the
Sanders
back
was
end.
excellent. Yeah. I mean, he was probably the best.
He was their Troy Polamalu.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And if you take away those first 2 touchdowns, that 3rd touchdown was a 30-yard drive because the Colts had to punt from the 1.5-yard line.
Yeah.
So really, they hadn't given up much after those first 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. So Bettis runs the ball, gets the 4th down. They get to another 4th and 1, and this time they're I think the Colts 39 or they're on the other side of the 50, and they run Bettis on a 4th down, and he barely gets the first down. The first one on the QB sneak, they get it by probably a full yard. This one, the 4th down was much closer, and I think it might have been still at midfield. It was literally by the nose of the football.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't quite index card time, but it was pretty close. And the Colts just start absolutely they figured out the Steelers aren't going to throw the ball, so they're just not only do you have a good Colts defense, now you have a good Colts defense with 9 people at the line of scrimmage or in the boxes. The the jargon. So the Steelers run the ball 3 more times. They get stuffed on a 3rd and 5. So it's 4th and long, and they have to punt. So now, so Chris Gardocki punts the ball in the end zone, and the Colts get the ball back with 6:03 to play. The Steelers, they were very conservative, like we said. They aren't really throwing the ball. They get the clock down to 6 minutes, and they really didn't trust Ben quite yet.
But that drive was still, even though
It
they were
was
super
one of the-
conservative, because they had 2 4th downs that they converted.
Yeah.
So they
They took about 5 minutes, 4 or 5. I should have wrote that down. I think they took about 4 or 5 minutes.
Well,
off the
I
clock.
think they made up for the quick Dallas Clark touchdown, because
Yeah.
what we said was you wanted, for the Colts to score that first touchdown, you wanted them to take 5 minutes to do it.
Yeah.
And since they did it right away, the offense kind of made up for that by running all this 4th down. So that helped. And then, 6 minutes left. Colts still need 2 scores, and you're thinking hey,
We got a chance.
wait, this
the
is
defense is going to have to make a play, but
right, but we're in good shape.
Yeah. So here comes the end of the game, the last 6 minutes, probably one of the most insane 6 minutes. Get out your heart medicine.
I'm starting to sweat just thinking about talking about
Yeah,
this.
this is like the Steelers equivalent of Game 7 up 2-0 here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all right, we're all buckled in. We're ready to go. So it's probably the second craziest ending of a game, and Steelers. I mean, obviously, Immaculate Reception is it's going to be hard to ever top that one. But I would say this is a close second.
Yes.
On the next drive, Troy Polamalu makes a great interception. He baits. If you watch the replay, he does bait Peyton Manning, and he throws a pass across the middle. But Paul, any other safety besides maybe Bob Sanders, would not have made that play. So you can't really fault Peyton Manning. But he catches the ball and he rolls on the ground, and as he's getting up, his knee knocks the ball out of his own hand. But he fell on the ground and rolled around and stood up with the ball. It wasn't moving around. It wasn't like he was fumbling it. He stood up on 2 feet with the ball. So I don't, so he drops the ball and he falls on it. And so Tony Dungy has nothing to lose. And this is, they should go to the hockey rule on this. You should get a penalty if you just challenge frivolously. I like hockey went to that, because they were doing because I remember thinking after that, well, anytime there's a close play on any 4th down or anything, just throw your flag. If you have a challenge left on the side, just throw it, because who knows what they'll do.
Well, even if they would have had the penalty, their season was over. So he would have challenged that, I think, no matter what, because their season was over if that play doesn't get overturned.
Right. So they challenge, and for some reason, Bill Levy gets a call that CBS really wants to make a bunch of money off of ads the last couple minutes of this game, and just watching the Steelers win comfortably isn't going to be good for ad revenue or anything else. And we really want Tony Dungy to win because we really like Tony Dungy and Peyton Manning, and nobody likes the Steelers anyway. Boo, Ben Roethlisberger. So, well, this is before everybody hated Ben. But so they overturned the call, and it's a ridiculous call. I figure what he said. The ball never moves. I don't know. He said he rolled over with the ball. It was a ridiculous explanation.
NFL,
he dropped the ball after the catch. It was the of the Jesse James catch.
I was just going to say the Calvin Johnson,
the catch isn't a catch. Yeah.
The NFL for a long time had a real problem clarifying what a catch was.
Well, this all goes back. Nobody remembers it. There was a Wayne Corbett catch that started all this silliness. And I remember he caught it and tapped his feet. And as soon as he tapped his feet, he dropped the ball. And it was and they called it a catch, and the Jets ended up winning because of that. And that started all the silliness. They were oh, we got to change the rule. And like I said, I've said this before, I think way back when, the NFL now is gone to overreaction mode on everything. They'll just change a long-standing rule just because, well, I don't even know who the other team the Jets are. Well, the Jets really benefited, or somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why everything happens the way it happens.
No, they do that all the time. They did that with the pass interference challenge, even though that only lasted a year. But that was a reaction to something. The changing the overtime rules, that was a reaction to something, like the helmet hitting with the helmet. Like it's all reactive.
Yeah.
The NFL is never proactive; they're always reactive, and that's funny. I did not realize, and I did not remember that was the origin of the ridiculous catch rule.
It took them years to finally change it, but I think that's what kind of started the ball rolling towards, well, we need a better defense. And then they totally reversed it back to what it always was 2 feet control and a football move. And you can define, well, what's a football move? Well, this is life. This isn't like this isn't fantasy football, people.
Like if you just look at that replay, Troy caught the ball. He had it in his arms. He's getting
and
up.
We're biased, but I think even if you got like somebody who didn't have any dog in this fight, I think, and just covered up the logos and stuff and just said, "What is this?"
Yes.
They would say, "Well, that looks like a catch."
Same with Calvin Johnson. A couple years later. Same with Des Bryant in the playoff game. Like all those rulings, and that finally years later, led them to redefine. But all that stuff was ridiculous. Like you had to catch the ball, hold on to it, take a lap around the field.
Hand it to the official. Make sure the official didn't drop it.
Right.
And then the official had to give it to the ball, but they had the linesman, and he couldn't drop it either.
Yeah, it was absurd.
Yeah, no, and that's why, like, I'm a big fan of, like, I maybe we should do a whole podcast on, like, things that, things that should be done in sports, like, and I have a bunch of these, but one of them is the NFL needs to make, like, a change to the way they make rules. You're only allowed to change the rules, like, it's like almost like passing an amendment to the Constitution. Mm-hmm. It's a 5 years. You can only change like 10 rules every 5 years, and it has to be voted on by not just the owners, the referees, and the players' union. Make it like, and the writers. I put even writers, like 30-30-30 and a 10% writer. And there you go. Change whatever rule you want. Every year the Belichick wants to make everything a challenge, everything reviewable by instant replay. He just does that because I think it's a negotiation tactic for him, because he wants to push. He obviously has something he wants reviewable, and then and if Mike Vrabel wants to sit there and take false start penalties to run out the clock, great. We'll change that in 4 years. Get away with it now, Mike, for 4 years, because in 4 years they're going to change that. And if it's really a problem, after 4 years, you will change it. Not overacting because Brett Favre didn't get to touch the ball in overtime.
Right. Or the Saints got jobbed by a pass interference call.
Yeah.
And now you're stopping the game with all these pass interference challenges. Yeah, I agree. I like that idea.
Yeah, and you could still change the rules. It's just that way you're not changing it just for every little thing. So anyway, so that's enough complaining about that. The league actually admitted it was a mistake, but good coaching by Bill Cowher. I always thought this is great. Like he just was saying to the defense, he said, "I can't control this. We can't worry about it. Just play. What we can do is we can go out there and make plays, and if they overturn it, so be it. Don't worry about it." And that was the right attitude for, Bill Cowher. Really, like we said, like he definitely moved away from the conservative Marty. He definitely made a lot of, strides to be his own kind of person. So the Colts, to their credit, a lot of other teams have gotten breaks like this and not taking advantages, but the Colts are a good team and they do. They score on a TD run by running back Edgerrin James. I think the team was just kind of stunned by that overturn, but the Colts are a good team too, and the play of the drive is a perfect throw by Manning and a sweet catch by Reggie Wayne between two Steeler defenders. Reggie Wayne ends up having a great second half. That was a great catch down the sidelines. I think there was one of those two deep zones where there was a guy in front of him and a guy behind him, and Manning just put it in perfect. And there was literally one little foot for him to work on the sidelines. It was just a tremendous catch. And if you thought that catch was good, when they go for two, Wayne makes another unbelievable, indefensible, catch. He throws one to the back of the end zone. And, Wayne drags his feet. It's two unbelievable plays.
I always remember that 2-point conversion. There was like these two big inflatable. Like,
Yeah, and like he's like partying with them.
Yeah,
They're
like these two like mascot guys like in the corner of the end zone like bobbing up and down. I don't know why I just remember that image. I think it was because
it was right on that side. Yeah,
it was right in that corner, and I think I just remember that being burned into my head because that's the moment where you're like, oh no. Oh,
yeah.
no.
So now the score is 21-18. And now the fans are now in full-on panic mode.
Yes.
Panic has set in. There is desperation in the halls of whatever, Pittsburgh, the bars of Pittsburgh. People are really nervous in homes and, yeah. So everybody's on the edge of his seat. So the Steelers, so what do they do to respond to this? Let's get even more conservative on offense. Yay! So they're really sitting on their defense now. And Ben makes a throw on. They do the classic run pass offense of play calling, which is just awesome. And Nick Harper makes a great play. He breaks up the pass on third down. It was to Hines Ward. It wasn't a bad pass by Ben. It was just a better play by Nick Harper, and it wasn't a bad play by Hines Ward. If Hines Ward could have got his hands on the ball, he catches it because that's what Hines Ward does. But the Colts were a really good team that year. So all the Colts need is a field goal to tie or a touchdown to win. So the Steelers decided, Dick LeBeau decides that he's tired of playing conservative, eat the clock defense. He's like, well, we're down. If we're going to go out, we're going to go out guns blazing. So we're blitzing, boys. So here they come. So Joey Porter, after talking crap the whole week before, decides to back it up and makes himself legendary after that. He gets a big sack on second down, and then that forces a 4th and 16. And it's just him and Ferrier making absolutely they put pressure on Peyton Manning. Like I said, if you can disrupt Peyton Manning's rhythm, he's not as effective, and they sack him, and that's 4th and 16. That's the ball game. There was 2 minutes left. Bill Holgram and Tunch Ilkin declare the game over. I remember Tunch saying, make your reservations. We're going to Denver because Denver had won. Here's where the no-call interception comes back to bite you, not just in the Colts scoring and being back in the game. This is where it really is, everybody forgets about this, is if the Steelers would have gotten the ball there and, let's say, not done anything, the Colts would have to use all their timeouts. But because they didn't and they scored, they had 3 timeouts. So even if it would have played out just like this, and the Steelers had to clean up some garbage time, they could have just kneel, nothing. But because of that, because of the no interception call and the Steelers throwing on third down, the Colts still have all their timeouts, so the Steelers have to run the ball.
And they're at the 2-yard line, and yeah, you're right. If the time was on their side, you couldn't kick a field goal there because if you kick a field goal, you're only up by 6. And
plus it was first down. You aren't going to kick you want to make the at very least use up your timeouts. Get rid of those timeouts.
Right, but like you said, if they could have they couldn't just kneel. Right. Because the Colts would have taken 3 timeouts, there still would have been 2 minutes left, and then it would have been a 6-point game. With the Colts getting the ball back, you couldn't do that. You had to just, like you said, run the ball, run the clock, and then
even if you didn't score, if you get it under 2 minutes, you don't even. Well, you still want to kick the field goal because a touchdown's harder than it's easier to defend against a touchdown.
Well, and honestly, that might be a situation now where you might see some teams just let.
Well, they tried it in Minnesota. Mike Zimmer tried that earlier.
Let the guy run into the end zone,
Oh no! He tried to run to put the ball away.
Right.
But that was the Falcons that tried. Yeah.
Well, but I'm saying that now you might see a team.
Nick Chubb did that.
Right.
He ran out of bounds.
Because the Colts probably would have had a better chance to let them score quickly and then try to march down the field with their timeouts.
Yeah.
Get a touchdown and an onside kick.
Yeah, keep the game going. Yeah, football's getting too basketball for me. This is getting ridiculous.
But for sure with the Steelers on the 2, you see why the announcer said it was over because Steelers have the ball at the 2-yard line. They're up by 3.
And even the Colts,
the game was over.
Yeah, if you watch the NFL Films little whatever they put together of that. Like the Colts announcer's like, well, they got Bettis and they're going to the ball to Bettis, and he doesn't really fumble much. I don't think Bettis had fumbled a lot that year, maybe once. And so, Jerome Bettis the last couple of years has become like this short yardage specialist. He had already scored earlier that game. The Colts broadcasters are praying for a fumble. Bettis had not fumbled that season. So Bettis they call him Bettis, which is, it is conservative. Now you want to be conservative. You're into like, I call it just fall down mode. Just literally whatever you do, just fall forward.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter. Like just hold on to the ball and fall forward. That's all we're trying to do here.
Even the Rex Ryan on Cowher's shoulders, like, no, just run the ball.
Yeah.
Don't do anything dumb here.
You don't even have to hand it off. If you got like a quarterback you think can sneak the ball, if I had Lamar Jackson, that's what or one of these running quarterbacks, that's what I would do. I just fall forward, dude. Both hands on the ball, and if you get a yard, great. You know? So, unfortunately, Jerome Bettis runs into the line, and he decides, like, instead of just meeting Gary Brackett head on, he, like, turns, and Gary Brackett, to his credit, makes a great play. He hits the ball right with his helmet, and Bettis, like, the ball pumps out, and the ball, like, it just, like, all happens in slow motion, like, because your brain slows things down when traumatic things happen. And so the ball's bouncing around, and Nick Harper comes up and scoops up the ball, and he has one chance. Like Jeff Hardings, who saw it happen, misses a tackle, and they're in like goal line, and Nick Harper's like a fast defensive back. So Nick Harper is like literally on his way to becoming super like Indianapolis Colts legend if he just stays to the top of the screen to the right. If he literally just picks the Bo Jackson play from Tecmo Bowl, the Colts win this game. But for some reason, like Ben, to his credit, runs backwards, just figures, and that's the other thing we kind of get. We're at their 2-yard line. So Ben had some room to work. He's just trying to like slow Nick Harper down until hopefully somebody can help him make the tackle. Well, all Nick Harper has to do, like I said, is cut to the right. For some reason, he cuts to the middle of the field. I guess he thought he was going to make a move on Ben. And Ben literally at the last minute reaches out and grabs him by his shoe. I am not making this up. Grabs him by his shoe and pulls him down. And I mean, Ben is now a legend, for a tackle. It's one of the most, craziest things. So, Tunch Ilkin says, cancel the reservations at Denver. We got a game that finishes. Dick Enberg drops an oh my that is probably still reverberating somewhere in the stratosphere. On a personal note, this game, that play, I was watching with my parents, and I swore. Like, my mother is like a very conservative person, and I've only ever sworn from my mother twice. This is one of the times. And I called Jerome Bettis every name in the book that I could think of, and it was not flattering. But you know what? He deserved. No, I don't know. No, I mean, it happened.
It was so shocking.
It was just. I'm sure I was not the only one that was literally calling Jerome Bettis, making fun of his weight in his what would you say, ancestral? Not. I want to say is like the marital status of his parents when he was born. Let's say, without saying, Let's say that.
I don't think I was yelling. I think I was just sort of. I remember being on the floor, and I think I was sort of like in a fetal position. I had my head
crying, sucking your thumb,
buried into the ground. I could not believe. I just couldn't believe that happened.
I remember my dad yelling at me. He's like, "Knock that off!" I was just so angry because it's like, what was it? You played the most conservative game on offense the whole second half.
Well, and Bettis, like. This was going to be probably his last season, and this might be how his career ends. And like he's money. Like that was like we talked about in our last episode about Jose Lean making the error.
Yeah, this was equivalent to
that. Was equivalent to that. Yeah. Like the guy that was like the best defensive second baseman and made the error at the worst possible time. Yeah. That was this.
So, the Colts actually get the ball around midfield. I didn't note that, but they drive to the Steelers' 30-yard line. And so they're in field goal range. So Peyton Manning's kind of smart here. He starts to take shots at the end zone because there's still a lot of, like, as you get closer to the end zone, it's easier to defend. So it's kind of smart on Peyton Manning's part. Like, he starts taking shots at the end zone, and Brian McFadden's up to the task. Like, if you look at the play before the field goal, like, McFadden almost picks that off. Like, it was a horrible pass by Manning. Like, I don't know if he thought, like, Wayne was going to run, like, one of those plays where he stops, what they call the back shoulder play, and, like, Wayne was, like, running a go or something. But, like, yeah, like, McFadden almost got an interception on that play. So, and I remember, too, like, because he dove into, like, a big pile of confetti because somebody threw, like, confetti on the field, I guess. I guess they thought Nick Harper was really going to score on that play, the Colts fan. I thought he was, too, So, enter 4th and 2. The Colts decide they're going to, you got to at least kick the field goal, get it to overtime. It's a 46-yard field goal. Enter Mike Vanderjagt. Mike Vanderjagt, at that time, was the most accurate field goal kicker in NFL history. At that point, he had not missed a kick the whole season. He was also 87% for his career. Mike Vanderjagt had won 2 Grey Cups in the CFL. He'd also graduated from a fine university in Morgantown, WVU. He spent 2 years there as a punter and finally a place kicker. After a playoff loss, like I guess a couple years earlier, I think it was one of the ones of the Patriots, he said that he had some critical things to say about Dungy and Manning. I think he called them soft too, like that they couldn't, they didn't have the guts to win a Super Bowl or something like that. So Manning responded by calling me an idiot kicker, saying, "Oh yeah, you go up to Canada, get all liquored up, and say a bunch of stupid stuff."
Yeah, he's idiot kicker. That's what just everybody called him that after that because Peyton Manning. It was during the Pro Bowl. Yeah, like they were interviewing Manning on the sideline. They're like, "What do you think about what your kicker said?" And he's like, "Well, who cares what the idiot kicker says?"
Yeah. Cowher calls a timeout to freeze Vanderjagt, and I remember this too. Like he pointed at Cowher and laughed at him. Like, I've never seen a kicker talk as much trash as Vanderjagt did. But,
yeah,
he is from, he did go to WVU.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
so he definitely behaved a lot like
I don't know if he thought Joey
WVU.
was Jerry Porter too, but maybe it's a WVU thing. I don't know. But so Vanderjagt's lining up. It's like a sure thing. You think this game's going to overtime. This is in a dome. Like this is such a gimme field
goal.
Such
an automatic easy
and especially with this guy too.
He really never misses.
So Vanderjagt kicks the field and he misses it badly, wide right, Shankopotamus.
And it was really wide right.
Yeah, it wasn't even close. Like as soon as he kicked it,
you knew. Yeah,
it was like that's not going in. Yeah, and Tunch Ilkins remake those reservations. We're heading to Denver. I remember, on a personal note, yelling out, running down the hallway of my parents' house, yelling, "I'd rather be lucky than good," because we were definitely fortunate on that one. Jerome Bettis, I remember like he missed it. That was everybody they made a montage of everybody saying like first Cowher, then Bettis, then even Tony Dungy and Peyton Manning like a what would you call it, a sarcastic or wry, he missed it, you know?
Yeah, Peyton was just he missed it.
Yeah.
And I the nobody would ever remember this, but he missed it with 8 seconds left. So the Steelers still had to do a kneel down.
Yeah.
And I remember being nervous for the kneel down because so many shocking things had happened already. I was and I remember all the people I was with were celebrating. I'm like, wait, they still have to run a play. They still have to run a play.
It's
Lord only knows what will happen here. Just wait.
I guess lucky than good. Mike Vanderjagt, the aftermath. Mike Vanderjagt got cut by the Colts in that offseason. And the Colts signed a guy named Adam Vinatieri to replace him. Don't feel too bad for Tony Dungy and Peyton Manning. They would win a Super Bowl the next year. Jerome Bettis got saved from infamy by Big Ben. He really would have been Ernest Biner. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what would have, I mean, he would have got, like you said, Jose Lean. And he definitely, But a lot of things that would have went differently. Ben Roethlisberger's tackle is dubbed the Immaculate Redemption, or the tackle. I just remember calling it amazing.
Yeah.
And I just remember, because I had to drive home, obviously, after this, Pittsburgh went nuts. Like I think everybody like was like you was like just caught like okay they're kind of sticking their toe in the water on the Steelers on this. Okay, I'm not sure. I think this team's good. They went 15-1 last year and they didn't lose anybody. Like well, what can we should we believe or not?
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh went all in after this
Yes,
game.
I
I
agree.
remember driving like down Brookline Boulevard and everybody was out of the bars on the streets like going insane like Steeler crazy. It was just I don't know if I've ever seen anything quite like it in Pittsburgh. It really came I think of that us against the world mentality that it just from being the underdog that whole week and oh no you can't do it, the Colts are too good, you'll never do any blah 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 blah. So a lot of people were wrong, but hey, good for congratulations. A fan actually did have a heart attack after the Bettis fumble, but fortunately for him, I think there was I don't know if there were volunteer firemen in the bar with him but yeah, they were able to revive him and bring him back to life.
Yeah, it was one of the bars on the south side.
Yeah.
That was the famous story. And then they like interviewed him in his hospital bed, and he was like, "Jerome literally broke my heart."
Well, because I have the story. Talk about a heart-stocking game. It was Terry O'Neill, and O'Neill said Bettis is his hero. He wasn't upset the Steelers might lose. I was upset because I didn't want to see him end his career like that, which is a very nice thing to say. He didn't want him. He's obviously a big Jerome Bettis and Steelers fan. He didn't, and I can understand that. He didn't want to see his
And for all the people that think we take sports too seriously in Pittsburgh, we absolutely do. This guy was living proof, and you can kind of laugh about it afterwards because he was okay. You know, I mean, fortunately.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess Jerome Bettis should come with a disclaimer: can cause heart tragedy. But like we're gonna cover the rest of the season and the Super Bowl and everything else in later podcasts. But boy, that was an unbelievable game, legendary. I mean, I can't think of too many other playoff games that rank up there with this, like as far as wins go, at least. I mean, you got 1960 World Series, the Immaculate Receptions, Super Bowl 43. I mean, this is probably right up there with those games. So. An unbelievable game. It was a lot of fun to relive it, even though, oh man, it had everything. It really did. CBS got their money's worth, so Pete Morelli should be happy. Or was it Morelli? No, it wasn't Pete. It was
it was Pete Morelli. So like I think the twists and turns of that last 6 minutes, like I can't think of anything to compare that to in any kind of other sporting event. Like you said, Super Bowl 43, that definitely had its twists and turns at the end too.
Well, the 60 World Series, which was before our time.
Yeah.
That the guy getting hit in the throat by a ground ball.
That's probably
they blew a call. Like in that game, they blew, like the Pirates tagged, I think, Mantle out at first, but they blew the call. And I mean, they couldn't rewind Bing Crosby's, like, they could, hey, Bing, can we borrow your, no, there was none of that. So
yeah, no, you're right. That one had a ton of back and forth as well. So that's probably the closest comparison. But this one just, like the shocking, like when they set, like first.
They were up 21-3 in the fourth quarter, and it came down to a missed field goal.
Well, and like the intercept, like Troy intercepts it, that's game's over. Yeah. No, it's not. Now the Colts score, and they clearly have all the momentum. Oh no, but then we sack Manning. Okay, game's over.
Yeah.
Then Bettis fumbles, and it's I just I never want to live through something like that again. I don't know that I would live through something. Like I was a lot younger then. Like it literally was so just emotionally draining. But yeah, we came out on top, so that was good.
Yeah. Like I said, tune in for the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say at a later date. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Steve Word. You can catch us on all your favorite podcasting places like iTunes, Spotify. And the website is still pittsburghsportsmemories.com.
Weebly.com.
It is still .weebly.com. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Merry Christmas.